How lame is that? This is so 2026, and I just did a 2020 oops. Katya, thank you for saving me. Yes, of course, I was on mute. So welcome. Thank you for your good grace. My name's Adam Mattis. As the screen would imply, I work with a select group. But just to kind of restate the disclaimer in the beginning, we're filming today in front of a live studio audience, live streaming on LinkedIn, in addition to the folks that are here. So if you're here, you consent to being recorded. We will send that recording back out to you afterwards. We'll do some social shorts and some cool things. What we're here to talk about today is the flag that we're flying at the select group, which is this notion of continuous modernization. Before I get into that, I just want to introduce myself for those of you that maybe don't know me or know me from a different life. My name's Adam Mattis. I am overseeing our practice here at the select group for strategy and modernization. I've spent the last 20 years helping organizations transform in one way or another. And to be honest with you, I'm over it. Why am I over it? Because we start, we stop, we start again, wind up programs, spin them down. And the whiplash is exhausting. And quite honestly, the world is moving way too fast for us to do that in this current context. So, beyond that, before I came to the select group, I built one of the largest and most successful operational frameworks in the world. I shouldn't say I built it, I contributed to it for a lot of years. And I'm excited to take all of the things that I've learned about how organizations run across industries, across geographies, what works and what doesn't, and bring that to the select group. I joined the select group back in February after a brief retirement. And I joined because I've been watching this company grow and change over the last several years. TSG is 26 years old. They started life as a staffing company, strategic resourcing. They moved into managed services, and they're now moving into expanding into a strategic consultancy space. And one of the things that I love the most about TSG and why I decided to come here, aside from the amazing people, and we really do have amazing people, is the idea that we don't want to land and expand. That's not our goal. Our goal is to help our clients achieve business outcomes as quickly and as expeditiously as possible, and then get out of their hair. We want to leave our clients so happy and so satisfied that they continue to call us back and not be stuck with us, right? So that's something I've learned from a previous life that we don't want to repeat here. And I'm excited to be a part of the team and building some really cool things. So to get into this, right, how many times in our lives, if you're a millennial like me, right, we've seen this. It started just like any other week, and then a black swan event happened. I've got a book back here I was trying to find, I just bought last week. It talks about black swan events. And I think we recognize a black swan event as something that is just so far-fetched it could never happen. Except we've had, what do we have here? 12 black swan events throughout the course of our professional careers. Not the same one, right? We've had multiple different weird things happen throughout the course of our careers, right? Disruption is the name of the game. Weird things happening is the name of the game. I'm not going to go through all of these events. I think if we look through this, we'll all have our own, sort of flashbacks and creepy moments to think back of all the things that happened. But we've been through a few. Like I said, if you're a millennial like me, if you're a little younger, a little bit older, maybe you've experienced a few more or a few less, but we've been through many. And I think the guarantee is that not that any specific black swan event will happen, but that they will continue to happen in an unexpected way. So disruption that we face in the world, not just business, the world around us, it's no longer episodic. It's just how we operate. It's something that we've become used to, and it's something that we've had to accept as part of our day-to-day lives. And over the years, we've tried our best to build mechanisms to help us be more adaptive and responsive to these things, right? We've gone through 20 years of transformation, and I've had the privilege of working in every single one of these, right? My first company was a disruptive company. I was helping auto dealers get their inventory online, right? We were disrupting the newspaper and all those things that used to come out to advertise cars, right? So we had the web transformation, then we moved everything to the cloud. We got it off the hardware in the closets. Then we had digital transformations and agile transformations. And right now we're in the midst of an AI transformation. And again, to be honest, I'm tired of it all, right? Because it's the same pattern over and over. Each one of these worked in their own right? Our goal was to be faster, to be more modular, to be customer focused. But what worked previously is no longer enough. The pace of technology throughout the world, the way things are changing, we don't have the luxury of going through that same change adoption cycle that we see when we embrace new technologies and these technology revolution periods. So we know that something is coming next. I'm doing a lot of research personally around humanoids and robotics in the workforce, outside of just manufacturing. There's so much coming, and we've got to be ready for it. We can't start and stop a transformation initiative every single time. And why is that word? Now, I'm a big proponent of the notion that words matter, right? So why am I so against the word transformation when it's quite honestly been so good to me throughout my career? Well, transformation, just like a project, implies a finish line, right? We start a transformation initiative, we fund it, we do work, and then at some point, right, ta-da, we're transformed. Except we declared done, but the disruption continues, and we probably never got all of the results that we thought we would after having gone through that transformation initiative. That we don't have amazing people who are their best, and it's not that we don't do our best to try and shift culture. But the reality is this: change is hard, right? This idea that we can go through some, whatever you want to call it, right? We can go through some training, we can go through some adoption, we can do some things, and we come out the other side and we're entirely different. I mean, if anybody has tried to go on a crash diet, you know that that's not the way that it works, right? To truly transform means you have to change who you are and how you operate. So this trap has got two ways to lose. And like here at TSG and me personally, like we don't like to lose. Like we like to win. We like to win a lot. Like I don't know how not to win. So losing doesn't work well for me. Um, so what we do know is that if we don't do anything, bad things will happen, right? So we know that transformations still fail to meet their objective, but we know that standing still is not safe either, right? If you never did a web transformation, you never did a digital transformation, I mean, you're probably one of those companies that's no longer listed on the S&P 500, right? Not changing is not an option. And then the flip side of that is we have to avoid change saturation, right? Change isn't just coming from work. It's coming from all directions at all times at a rate at which we've never seen before throughout history. So we know we can't stand still. We know that we need to control the rate at which change is happening. Oof, it sounds like a lot. What do we do? So what we believe and what I believe is that we need to, that if you want to improve your life, if you want to improve your health, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change. And when we talk about modernization, that's exactly what we want to focus on. We can't treat modernization as a program. It's got to be a lifestyle change. It's something that we have to constantly embrace. There is no finish line. The world is rapidly changing, and we need to always put ourselves in a position to keep pace with it. So, out of curiosity, we've got 23 folks here in Riverside, and there's a bunch more on LinkedIn and some other places. So, using your emojis, go ahead and just let me know. Give me a clap if you treat modernization as a one-time program, and give me that celebrate if modernization is a capability that you're building. I'm not even sure how I can see these, so going to rely on Katya to capture it. There we go. We got a few, right? So we've got some folks, I'm guessing there's some TSGers in there, that are building this capability, right? But the thing is, we can't treat this as a program. We're not done. Let me click back over here to the right thing. Many organizations, like I've talked to a lot of clients, and in any given week, I'm probably speaking to 5 to 10 different clients. And these aren't just, kind of mid-tier companies in a small town that, are maybe a little late on the change adoption curve. These are the companies that are on the leading edge of changing technology around the world. And the reality is they're still treating this as a program. Is it that we don't know any better? Is it that we don't tell our clients to do something different? Well, no, right? It's because, again, change is hard. And this is the way that we've always done it. When we need to do something difficult, as humans, we typically revert back to the last pattern that we followed that brought us success. So when hard things happen, you default to your last success pattern, right? We might know we need to do something different, but we tend to do that. We tend to default. We need to get out of this programmatic mindset in this space and focus on building a capability. We need to focus on making that lifestyle change. And this continuous modernization approach, this mindset, this philosophy is the way out of that transformation trap. So the big difference is the program ends, capabilities do not, right? So when we launch a transformation program, we define the scope, we do some training, we assign some funding to it, and there's an end date, right? We know We're funding it. We want to know when it's done and when we'll see an ROI from that money that we spend into it. When you're building a capability, again, it's ongoing. It's focused on somebody owns this idea of looking at what we call Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 initiatives. What are the things that are coming? They're going to hit us next. What are the new technologies or the new operating paradigms that are even further down the horizon? What are we monitoring, right? So somebody has to own that responsibility of looking ahead. And then we need to continuously invest in it, right? We don't want to be reactive to new technologies or new operating paradigms. We want to be cognizant and we want to be deliberate in that we're always having a set of funding available to pursue those things. And then this is a word I don't like. I'm going to change it, right? Continuous improvement to me is kind of squishy, right? We all want to continuously improve. Everybody does that. We want to relentlessly improve. We want to just viciously, without guilt, focus on improving and learning and growing every single day. It has to be a force that drives us as strong as winning does, right? It's not passive. We have to invest in ourselves. If you look at the job market right now, right, it's not easy. And if you have skills that are even a little bit stale, you get overlooked. And again, this is where relentless improvement comes in. We have to relentlessly improve ourselves, our operational and our organizational capabilities. This is the core of the DNA that we need to build, right? Somebody that owns it, owns the responsibility to look ahead. We have to have continuous investment in making sure that we can operationalize these new capabilities. And we have to continuously and relentlessly improve our organizations and ourselves. So there's two ways to picture this, and I like to use the Tesla paradigm. Love them or hate them, they've got some amazing architecture. So it used to be that when you bought a car, it was a snapshot, a point in time of the technology. It is what it is, right? You buy a 2000, I just bought a 2026 GMC Sierra, and it is what it is. And in August, there's going to be a 2027 that comes out. It's going to be an entirely different car. And I just have to live with the fact that they're different cars. We don't want to do that, right? It was hard for me to buy that car because I knew that the new one was coming out. Now, when you look at Tesla, they don't recognize model years. They're continuously improving their vehicles. And for the most part, from a technology standpoint, you get updates for life. Whenever they improve the vehicle or they improve the software, you don't have to go buy the new car. You just get it overnight when your car's parked in the garage. It downloads to the vehicle. That's how we want to embrace modernization, right? We don't want to just buy the new thing and install it and we're done. We want updates for life. We want to build that organizational capability. Our goal at TSG is to help you build that capability, right? I've spent a lot of years building frameworks and methods to help transform. What we want to focus on now is building the capability to always be on the bleeding edge of every new change that comes your way. And sure, there's going to be a need to have some assistance about what these new things look like as they operationalize in your environment. But we want to build you the capability that makes that discovery and that learning easy and as undisruptive as possible. So, what is the capability made of? One, we need to have the ability to sense and respond to all emerging changes that could be coming down the pipe, right? It doesn't matter what your industry is, it doesn't matter where you live anywhere in the world. We need to build this, right? Continuous monitoring, continuous reshuffling of our strategy. Now, the capability around this is SPM, strategic portfolio management. And the big shift there is we can't afford to go through a budgetary cycle in October, lock the budget by January, and say, well, this is what we're doing for the year. Because it's going to change. It changed between October and January. It's going to change between January and March. And if you think in January you can predict what you need to do in October or November or December, I hate to be able to tell you, but you're wrong. Right? You need to have this dynamic capability to allocate funds without knowing precisely what they're going to be spent on, and then have the organizational capability to rapidly adjust and respond to those new opportunities. Right? They're not always threats; they're opportunities that we need to exploit. This capability is as much offensive as it is defensive. The second is the architecture. Right? If any of you have ever seen the video that contrasts a 1950s F1 pit stop to a modern day pit stop, right? The 1950s one takes a minute plus. A modern one is like sub 3 seconds. There is absolutely nothing you can do to make that 1950s pit stop happen as fast as the modern one. Why is that? Well, they had to architect the car, the tools, and the pit crew for the intended purpose of having the fastest pit stop possible. You can't just throw more people at it, right? They had to re-architect the entire vehicle and their tools. And it's the same thing that we need to do with our organizations. A lot of enterprises have grown through acquisition without integration, right? And what that results in is some very ugly architecture, right? There was an organization I worked with a lot of years ago. Their conceptual diagram for their company was over 180,000 interconnected systems that nobody really understood the connection points between them, and they were terrified to shut any of them off. When that's your system, you cannot move fast. So again, you have to build intentionally a system that allows you to go fast. And this is your operational architecture. So for every kink there is in your technical armor, there is also a reciprocal operational component that goes along with that. We have to commit to getting better. We have to commit to re-architecting, to paying down technical that enables the future that we want, which is speed. We have to be able to sense and respond and get new changes to market fast. And then the third one, and this is really the foundation, right, which is why it's so big. We have to focus on sustainable change. We have to avoid whiplash. We have to be very intentional. We have to be clear about what it is that we want to achieve as an organization. What do we stand for? What's our competitive advantage? Where are we going? And then be very deliberate to filter out the noise that doesn't propel that vision forward. We also need to be cognizant of the fact that there's change going on all around us, and we need to be deliberate about how and when we introduce change. There's some change that's imposed that we don't have a choice; it's coming no matter what. And there's some change that we elect to introduce, and that's what we can control. We also need to monitor for internal change and external change. Right? What are we accepting, and what are we having imposed on us? And we need to do our best to again avoid change saturation. Control what you can, be very deliberate in what changes are in your ecosystem, and do your best to protect your team. So, what this means is that we want to push hard, but not too hard. Sustainable change is the key. We have a diminished capacity as people to absorb change in 2026, right? And this is a comparison from 2016 to 2022 by Gartner. And I promise you, we are less likely and less excited about absorbing change in 2026 than we were in 22. But with that said, again, comparing this same graph, the rate of change that's coming at us has grown exponentially, right? It's coming at us all the time from everywhere. So we've got to figure out like what is the right balance. Again, this is why being deliberate about how we introduce change and protecting our people from change and our customers is so important. Anytime you introduce a change, there needs to be a very clear why. Why are we doing this? How are we doing this? And what is the expected outcome? That at least begins to make some of the change that we have going on in our environment a lot easier to absorb. Way too often we introduce change and forget the most important part, which if any of you are Simon Sinek fans know is the why. So the first capability, again, this is the sense and respond. We want to watch for the things that matter. There is a lot of noise all around us every day. So we need to figure out how do we filter out what's most important to us, and how do we, again, fund those things in a dynamic way? How do we allow ourselves the ability to place bets and run experiments? So there's a large financial firm, and this is something that a lot of people can build, right? You can introduce agentic tools to help filter through this. There's a company I've worked a lot with. It's called Planisware. They're doing this in their strategic portfolio solution, right? They're starting to have the capability to filter potential new portfolio items in to your SPM work management system based on the parameters that you set, right? So it knows your industry, it knows what your strategic imperatives are, and it starts monitoring, right? Like what are the things that we should be considering based on what we see in the market, based on what the competitors are doing, based on what we see is going on, what are some technical capabilities we need to build? And the agents will start building these, what we call epics, or whatever you want to call them, big ideas, into the SPM tool for you to consider. So some of these new ideas are again being filtered automatically. So we're not always on our own to try and find them. We have some things that are surfaced for us. But the whole idea is, again, the world's changing fast. We can't pay attention to everything. We need to pay attention to the right things and then retain the capability to place our bets where is appropriate. And the second, again, is this adaptive architecture. And look, this can mean a lot of different things. I gave you the example of the shipping firm, right, that folds the new organizations in now to the portfolio without having to rewire its architecture. The idea is that when you go out and make change, your goal is to make that change as modular as possible in terms of your architecture. We need to have like a bunch of Legos in terms of our operations and our technology. We need to be able to move fast. And this isn't easy, right? If any of you have been in any sort of an architecture role, you know how complex many organizations are. But I also like to relate this to a credit card, right? We all know what happens if you run up a credit card and make the minimum payments every month. You never get anywhere. And that's the same thing that happens with your organizational and technical architecture debt. If you don't start paying it down deliberately, you'll never get out of the hole that you're in. So we've got to build systems that are resilient, right? When we talk about football, we talk a lot about defenses that bend, don't break. We need to have that same thing in our organizational, operational, and technical architectures. They need to be able to be malleable and not brittle. What does that mean to you? Lucky for you, I know a guy that can help you figure that out. The third is, again, the sustainable change. And there's a mechanism that I built with a woman whose name I won't mention because she's not here a lot of years ago. And it's this concept of air traffic, or a change management air traffic control radar. It's a mechanism that allows you to view all of the change coming at your customer and at your team or your employees at any given point in time, understanding where it's coming from, internal or external, and whether it's elected or imposed. And it also shows where the change is in its landing path, right? Is it change that's on the horizon that we could still maybe wave off? Is it in its landing approach and it's coming? We can't stop it, but we have time to prepare for it. Or is it hitting right now? Right. And having that real time dashboard to help you understand exactly what's coming, when, and how is very helpful in preparing your team to receive it and also protecting your team from unnecessary change. Again, when it comes to this notion of continuous modernization in our 2026 dynamic environment, this is the most important thing that you can do for your customers and your team, is to be very, very intentional about change. Protect them, control it, and where you have to impose it, be very crisp about the why. So where does a leader begin, right? This is a lot. And I want to be clear about, the difference of between leadership as a function and leadership as a capability that we all have, right? We all have a responsibility to lead in these areas. So we need to start figuring out what is it that we do. You're leaving to go back to lunch here in 30 minutes or so. What can you do? So let's do a quick self-assessment, right? Number one, do your teams matter or know what change matters most right now? If you were to send like a mass Teams message or Slack message or walk down the halls and just stop 5 random people and say, hey, what's the most important thing we're working on right now? Would they all say the same thing? If the answer is no, that's a good place to start, right? And another flavor of this same question is, do you know what the strategy is? Do you know what the most important thing that our company is chasing right now is? And I would venture to say that in a lot of organizations, people don't know, right? They might know for their area, but from an enterprise standpoint, they don't know. That's your core why, right? Why do you come to work every day? Yes, it's for a paycheck, but what are you trying to achieve? If we're not aligned on that, we've got a bigger problem. So we align on the why, and then we understand what change that is currently in flight is the most important right now for our organization. Good place to start. Question 2, can your people name what change landed last quarter and right? So what change was imposed upon us? What change did we receive? Why was it imposed? And what was the outcome? And the third, does anyone hold a portfolio level view of every change currently underway? And I would venture to guess in many enterprises, the answer is no, right? These are 3 very simple diagnostic questions that will give you a very clear place to start, right? What change is the most important that we're focused on today? what change was last imposed on us and why, and what can we do to start providing visibility to all of the change currently in flight. So as we go through this again notion from a project-based transformation initiative to really building a capability, there's three stages of maturity that we need to be aware of, right? Our goal is to all get to capability, but it's important to understand kind of where we're at. A project-based um, modernization initiative, that starts only when something breaks. And if any of you have ever been in any sort of an organizational change initiative, you know that there's two tipping point factors that initiate change. One is proactive leadership. And those are the most fun to be a part of, right? Because they say, hey, we need to disrupt ourselves because we see this thing coming and we want to be ahead of it. So much fun, the best ones to be a part of. The other is when we have a burning platform, right? Something has broken, and if we don't do something now, the wheels will fall off. That's typically where those projects get spun up. The second is programmatic, right? That's when the modernization initiative is funded, it's planned, it probably has a COE, it has a named executive sponsor. So we're taking it seriously, but it also has an expected end date, right? You know, for those of you that have been through agile transformations, I mean, the goal was never to be in an agile transformation forever. It was to transform and, you know, say thanks to the coaches and then move on. And you see that with a lot of the laces in the COEs that will kind of stand up, spin up, staff up, and then roll off. So we don't want to be in that model either, right? Because we know what happens when that program ends. Any velocity that we gained, any success or maturity that we developed, is it goes out the window, right? We backslide. So what we need to get to again is this capability led perspective on modernization. And it's not something that we stand up and do. It's something that we embrace and become. I mean, again, it's the difference between, you know, taking like a 6-week boot camp workout, maybe taking, you know, something a little more seriously. Maybe you're training for a high rocks or something. Like both of those are good, but they don't change your life. We want to change our lifestyle, right? We've got to build that capability and hardwire these changes and these behavioral paradigms into who we are and how we operate every single day. So, what does good look like, right? There was a book written by, her name's going to escape me. I forget it. It's Kim Scott. And she has the book was called Radical Candor. And there's a line in there that says, culture is what's said in the halls, not what's written on the walls. And the same thing here applies to modernization, it applies to innovation, and that is that the companies that are best at innovation or modernization never talk about it, right? We all recognize who they are, we know who we are, but they never say it because it's just who they are and what they do. We need to build that same discipline around our commitment to modernization. We don't need a slogan. We need to show up in our behavior. This Chinese organization that I have noted on the screen here, it's my favorite example for exactly how this works. They broke an 80,000 person company that, you know, was very structured into 4,000 little pieces. So they broke the organization up into 4,000 micro enterprises. Each micro enterprise is its own P&L. If they find other people to work with and other teams to work with to build a product, the team's employed. And they continue to be in demand based on the quality of work that they do. And if they're not so great, they're hard to work with, they don't deliver, their funding goes away and the team just disappears. That's modernization in hyper practice. Their goal is to build the best, most cost effective appliances out there. And they do it with wholly autonomous teams. Now, I'm not saying that we have to go out there and completely do things like that, but that's an example of a company that is focused on relentless improvement, that is always modern, that is always innovating, but never talks about it. You know that they are that way based on the products that they produce and their P&L and, you know, the revenue that they generate. So again, going back to change, I keep harping on this because it is very, very important, right? When change never lets up, the people are the first to pay 100% of the time. And I think if we look in the mirror, a lot of the people that are here can really relate to that, right? Like we know how it feels when the change comes fast and furious, when we don't why, and it's unrelenting. We're tired. We don't sleep well. If you're like me, probably crack a few teeth because you clinch at night. We need to recognize the decisions that we make and how they impact those around us. And we need to do our best to hedge the pain that we inflict through change with being good humans, right? We can't stop everything. We can't stop all pain, but we can do our best to hedge as much as we possibly can. And that's what I encourage us to all think about. So, again, the goal is not to change less, it's to change better. We want to change relentlessly. We want to build the capabilities in how we operate as a company, in how we architect our company, and how we control change so that we can be the best company at changing and not one that burns the company down because we do it so much. So when we again talk about core capabilities of continuous modernization, the foundation to all of it, to being competitive today and for 20 years in the future, is being really, really good at change. And that's where I'll leave everybody today. Katya, I see we've got some questions in chat. Can you, do you want to read some of those, or are you not here? I'm not sure I know how to get to them. Oh, public chat. Here we go. Okay. If there's any questions, I've got chat open now. Please go ahead and drop them in there. Come off mute if you would like. Other than that, if everyone's good, we can go ahead and wrap up. I want to thank everybody for making the time. This is something that we're going to be doing probably monthly. So please monitor your email, LinkedIn. We're going to have a lot more depth of content, different talking heads, and maybe even some guest speakers. But with all that said, I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me today over lunch. Go enjoy the rest of your break. And if you need any help or would like more conversation about continuous modernization and how TSG can help, my contact info is on the screen.